pride, passion, and pageantry of college football lives here. This is the Paul Finebaum Show, Hour 3 podcast.
This might be college football heaven.
We are back. Great to have everyone here. A couple more guests. And Barry starts off the third hour of our show.
Yes, Paul. Thank you for taking my call.
Thank you.
I'd like to comment two comments. The Jerry Reed song, When You Hot, You Hot.
Ooh.
And let's complete the story about Jalen Hurts' career at Alabama.
Okay.
He might have been benched by Alabama, but the following year he came back off the bench and took Tagovailoa's place and won the SEC championship for Alabama.
Yeah, he was. They would not have got. They wouldn't have won without him. That was a critical moment.
The following year.
It was an epic game too.
Yes, sir. Okay. Paul, today you was hot. When you hot, you hot. And, Jerry Reed would have been proud of you today in that song, When You Hot, You Hot.
I remember that song. That was, in the 70s? It was a great song, but remember that song?
Yeah.
When you're hot, you're hot.
Yeah.
Jerry Reed. He had some good songs.
You caught the judge today without wearing that black robe. You took
that judge, I don't know why I let him get to me, but he's just so haughty.
Yeah, but Paul, think of it. Jerry Reed, said if you wasn't wearing that black robe, I'd take you out and give you what you want on.
Oh, I like that.
That's a good song, and you done great. And
thank you very much, Barry.
When you're hot, you're hot. Paul.
As soon as I get my car tonight, Jerry Reed goes into the
Thank you for taking my call, Paul.
Thank you. What else did he do? Amos. Oh, yeah. Amos Mosley. I never understood what that song was about, but. Oh, was it? Oh, okay. Now I know. Jack is up next in Louisiana. Hello, Jack.
Jack, Paul, will you tell Logan that Tuffleville could never run for governor? He won't get his head out of Trump's ass long enough to run for governor.
But Jack, you remember, if it hadn't been for Donald Trump, Tuberville would still be hanging around Auburn talking football.
Yeah, he ought to go to Alabama and coach. Bye.
Okay. Wow. Okay, so against my better judgment, the judge wants another bite at the apple. So this time, I am going to sit back and let him pontificate. Usually the judge, second time around, is like a typical judge and talks out of the other side of his mouth. Judge?
Hey, Paul. I didn't say that they were taking any rights away from these kids. All I said was, before they turn the money over to them, they ought to make sure they've got a financial advisor in place. They don't have to do what the financial advisor says. They might go ahead and buy their Lamborghini. On the other hand, if one of them gets a head injury and he can't play anymore, then his family and wife and everybody be taken care of. I'm not racist. We kept 13 foster children while our kids were little. One of them was a little brown baby, and we loved her, and we had to give her up for adoption when she was 2 years old. But I'm not racist, and I'm not trying to take anybody's rights away from them. All I'm saying is that the financial advisor that they're given or would have in place when they get their money, say a 17, 18-year-old, they would have somebody to advise them how to do it. They don't have to do what the advisor says, so they're not taking any rights away from the player. Yeah, 13 foster children. While our kids were little. One of them was a brown baby.
Thank you, Judge. You good on that? I'm good. We're all good. Dan is up next in North Carolina. Hello, Dan.
Hello, Paul. Paul, you'd make a hell of a politician. You can dazzle them with brilliance and baffle them with BS.
We agree with that statement.
Yeah, I want to call and tell you I totally agree with your earlier comments on Nussmeier. He's disappointed me so many times, and I just don't understand why the talking heads in the sports industry continue to rate him so high. He has not proven to me that he deserves to be, maybe a number one or a number two pick in even an All-American in 2025. I just think he's an overrated quarterback who's found a niche at LSU, and but he doesn't deserve the applause that he's receiving.
Well, I thought Blake Topmeyer said something really interesting when I said, so help me understand it. He said, well, he wasn't all that good in a couple of key games, but that's what I was remembering. How many times did Brian Kelly go ballistic on the sidelines because he forced a play, he threw an interception in a critical situation? I don't care what you do against the teams you're 40-point favorites. I want to know what you do against the Ole Misses of the world, which he, by the way, won that game, against Alabama, against the toughest opponents that you have. I remember the end of the Florida game. No, I was thinking of Ole Miss there. I'm sorry. I mean, he just in the big moments of the year, outside of one game, I don't remember him doing much.
I agree.
He did. He did come through against Ole Miss in the overtime.
Yeah, one or two games doesn't do it for me, and I don't think it does it for you either.
Well, it
but
doesn't.
There's one other thing I wanted to just bring up. With reference to Jalen Hurts, of all the Alabama quarterbacks through time, he was the most disappointing to me, only because you can never count on him to be consistent. He is a professional Nussmeier, if you will, and terrific that he's won the Super Bowl. I applaud him for that. But I just think he has just been inconsistent and just having a very, very lucky year.
Well,
what do you think about that?
He had the best running back in the NFL this year on his team.
That's it.
He had elite receivers, Devontae Smith, AJ. I mean, he had I'm not taking anything away from Jalen because we're all in amazement of what he was able to overcome. He's a hardworking guy, which is what impresses me the most. He's overcome he's talented, but he's not like some of the NFL quarterbacks.
I totally agree, Paul. Thank you for my call.
You bet. Great to talk to you. Let's continue with more calls. John in Mississippi is up next. Hey, John.
Hey, Paul. Yeah, the rumor is that y'all ain't wanting to do a lot of talking about football on your show here lately and more about politics than football. And I'd be damned. I ain't listened to you in a long time. Hell, it's true. The truth is, I didn't really believe it, and I've been listening today, and damn, man, I can't believe Ohio State hurt y'all's damn feelings that bad. And also, the reason it's true, you just had a man call in from Pennsylvania, and he tried to tell you, and you sit there and let him say all of it, bunch of BS, that SEC was the best football conference and the SEC was the best basketball conference. When did the SEC all of a sudden become a basketball conference?
Let me interrupt you before you make a bigger fool out of yourself, okay?
I'm not making a fool out of
Yeah, you are, because the SEC is so far and above the best basketball conference right now. We're 2 hours removed from Jay Billis, who's the leading authority in the media on college basketball, saying this is not just the best team, the best league this year. He said it may be the best league in the history of the sport. I mean, that's the problem with people. This guy literally woke up this morning. He obviously is a Big Ten fan living in Mississippi, which is fascinating. And he heard us talk about the SEC in basketball. He knows absolutely nothing. And he said, well, I'll just go ahead and take a shot at that because where is he? Has he been in a cave lately? I I mean, I know it's easy to stick to the traditional things when you don't know any better, but if you're aware, if you're cognizant of your surroundings, how could you possibly criticize the statement that he just made about the SEC? We'll take a short break, and we are coming right back.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Mark Pope from the University of Kentucky talking to Matt, and let's check in with Terry, who is up next.
Hello, Paul. Be careful about running for governor here in Alabama. You know how they treat you sometimes. Think about the doctor and Mr. Spiegelman.
Yeah, I know. I knew both those guys. They ended up in jail. So on second thought, I'll pass.
Yeah, I thought you might want to rethink
Thank you. I appreciate you saving me some time.
Yeah, the other day, when Ryan was subbing for you, I took the One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest bus out, and of course I had page 54 and John from St. Louis on there, and they got into an argument. Page 54 gonna send me to hell and all that because I wanted to be like him, and I kept telling him he didn't even want to be like him, or he wouldn't be mad at people because he doesn't let anybody know who he is. So evidently he doesn't want to be who he is. Is that, that's the way I look at it. And then all of a sudden we see you come out of Saban's office, kind of walking by, and then we bump into Bash. He comes out of Sports Clips there and looks just like you. And the ladies come out, yeah, he got our first Paul Finebaum haircut special. So, looking good, except the thing is, he ran into the sign right out there because if you look at his Zoom call, his eyes are closed. He needs to glue them open. And then the other Zoom call that we need to have a little worry about is Brad. I mean, we were sitting there and look, as soon as Brad's face showed up, everybody goes, "Oh, let's leave it to Beaver. He's got that big hat on." But anyway, Paul, I just thought I would just warn you a little bit about being the governor of Alabama, and hope you rethink that.
Listen, you've done a good job. Randy, what do you think? We ought to abandon our campaign? No, Randy still likes the idea of stealing from the people, so we'll stay in the race for now. Hey, thank you, Terry. Too early to call. Yeah, let's find out how much money it's worth. Yeah, Michael is in Kentucky. Hey, Michael, go right ahead.
Hey, Paul, how are you doing today?
We are doing great.
That's great. I just want to congratulate you on that new mansion and move back to Alabama. And I just want to discuss about that Jaden Hurts. He is so wonderful. He was so super, and the Philadelphia Eagles for beating out the Kansas City Chiefs. And, I was so shocked about it, but he was stellar in the Super Bowl as well. And so I just really have to give him lots of credit for that. And I hope that, Paul, sometime that you can get the future governor for Alabama, because it is your home state. And I really, really would love to see you run for the governor of Alabama.
Michael, thank you. Thank you very much. What do they always say, Randy? I will do whatever the public wants. But here's my stipulation, okay? I will run on one condition, that I want to continue doing this every day. I think that's the best way to serve. Yeah. Every day, you got a bunch of these fat cats in the office. Guys, 2 o'clock. Got to get the makeup on and do the show. Now get out of here. And that would be, I think that would be my stipulation. Because why would I walk away from this to listen to a bunch of politicians all day? Yeah. I will give the state of the state address right here. Each day. Would that be okay with ESPN? Sure it would. Oh, they'd love it. Sure. I mean, Stephen A's running for president, isn't he? Last I checked. I mean, he's polling at 2%. Edward is next in Florida. Hello, Edward.
Mr. Finebaum, it's an honor to speak with you.
Thank you.
You know, my blood is orange and blue, and it's grateful to speak with you. Honestly, all that glitters is not gold, my friend, so tread lightly on this governor situation. I would rather see you have a statue. I'd rather see you have a statue in Alabama or in honestly every state. You deserve that. Every state in the Southeastern Conference should have a statue of Paul Finebaum. The Southeastern Conference would not be where it is today with Mr. Paul Finebaum not involved the way he is. And I don't think people realize that. My question for you today is Mr. DJ Lagway. I believe that he will win the Heisman next year. I believe it in my veins. I believe it in my blood. And I want to know what you think about that.
To win the Heisman, you obviously need a great year, but your team needs to be in contention. You don't have to win. That has been proven. RG3, Johnny Manziel, Lamar Jackson, among those who did not play on teams that were contenders. But you have to really be good. So if Florida is really good and rolling along in November in position to maybe get to the playoffs, then I think he could have a chance. He will play in enough marquee games. Hey, thank you for the call. Really do appreciate what you said. Judge Chris, another judge, has arrived.
Good afternoon, Mr. Finebaum.
I actually know this guy. I don't know about the other judge. I know this guy was a judge.
Yeah, I think the other guy was because the guy in Tennessee, Judge John was because some of the things he says, sort of inside information. But I got 3 roles for you lined up that you don't have to get elected to be a governor. And one is you could be the next governor of Canada if and when it becomes a 51st state.
It's too cold, by the way.
Or you could be the governor general of Greenland. It's only got 55,000 people.
Too cold.
It'd be a cold place, or perhaps the governor general of the Panama Canal Zone, if and when we take it back.
Judge, you just now, first of all, I like the weather down near the equator. Not quite, but we're almost there. I also like the amount of money I could pocket being the governor general of the Panama Canal.
Okay.
Can you imagine the graft that you would get?
Oh, my goodness. But
see if you can put in a good word with the White House.
I'll have my people call some people. But the other thing going on is we just, my wife and I, Terry, and my daughter Mariah just came back from a week in Costa Rica, which is right next to Panama. And I was able to patch through and watch some Clemson basketball. And Clemson has beaten Kentucky, Duke, and UNC this year.
Yeah, I saw the Duke game. They were great.
Yeah, they got a big Russian guy. I don't know where they got him. I think he used to play at Cincinnati. But anyway, it's good to have you back. The other guy, what's his name, did a great job while you were gone. And I will be getting your papers. Since I was on vacation in Panama, I haven't gotten all the legal papers drafted up, but I'll be serving them through Randy pretty soon.
You bet. Thank you. Now, that's a judge I can talk to. Yeah, because he's a little younger. He's not so cranky. We'll take a short break. We still have plenty of time for you to get in. We have a guest coming up as well.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Always great to welcome back to the program J.D. PicKell of On3. We've had a lot of conversations. We're a week removed, hey J.D., from National Signing Day. Everybody trying to figure out, okay, we got a great signing class. It really starts in December versus the portal. J.D., frame the conversation for us as everybody finds whatever they can to be proud of their teams.
Yeah, I think when you look across like who won National Signing Day, for me, it's tough to not look at Michigan with them flipping Bryce Underwood, the top player in America, quarterback out of the state of Michigan, keeping him from going to LSU to keep him in state. That's a guy that I think is going to change the entire trajectory of what Michigan football is under Sharon Moore. Also, Paul, how about Auburn? just hanging out with the top 10 class. And you would think too, like, hey, you miss a bowl game, take a step back from a wins losses perspective from what you were the first year under Hugh Freeze. And they just, continue to keep it full throttle wide open on the recruiting trail. And a guy like Deuce Knight is a 5-star quarterback. So in terms of who won, those are the two schools that I look at from a rankings perspective for us here at On 3. But I think the conversation around how teams are shaping their roster is becoming very interesting, because I think if I'm a fan, it'd be hard to not be a little bit jaded towards National Signing Day or towards recruiting in general, because my thought process is, well, hey, do I really need to get excited about my class because 20% is going to transfer, 25% is going to transfer? That quarterback we just landed, numbers say he may or may not be there in 2 years if he's not playing. So what I would say to that is, if 20% of your roster on national, or I'll rephrase that, 20% of your signing class you believe is going to transfer, which is a high number, doesn't that make National Signing Day and recruiting even more important? If you got to have 80% of your guys staying, don't you want it to be the most solid, high floor 80% of all time? So a lot there, but those are my winners, and I think how I'm viewing National Signing Day if I'm a college football fan in 2025.
JD, in terms of how coaches look at recruits, especially, you want them to develop, but what are you sensing just from talking to coaches now in terms of, let's say you go out and get that 5-star quarterback and you're not happy with where it's going. There's another guy out there. What do you do?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is, what can you do in relation to that 5-star quarterback? Because a lot of it, as we've seen today, Paul, is if that 5-star quarterback isn't playing sooner rather than later, he's probably going to jump ship. Like, we're not in a day and age where guys are willing to wait around for 2-3 years unless your last name is Manning. So with that being the case, I think you kind of have to make some business decisions and understand, hey, if this guy isn't the guy for us right now, we don't have 2 years to wait around till he figures it out. We got to win today, Junior. So in that sense, I think it is so much a sense of urgency of what have you done for me lately? And the portal has kind of expedited that process with some of these coaches that have won as quickly as they have by using the portal. So in my estimation, Paul, a lot of it is you got to do the best thing right now. And if that 5-star quarterback is the guy for you, great. But if not, you got to pivot, I think, pretty quick, fast, in a hurry, understanding that they may not be around for you.
Let's get to what you hear all the time, my GM. It's an NFL phrase, but it's also prevalent in college football. Tell us about this position and how important it is.
Yeah, Paul, it's wild. It's like you just mentioned, a new position in the world of college football. And was talking to someone actually before you and I jumped on just to kind of pick their brain on this topic. And what they told me is there's not really a prototype for what a GM is in college football. What the GM position started as was, okay, we're going to evaluate film and make sure we know how to construct our roster, keep track of scholarship count, all that stuff. And that's still, I think, a major part of the job. But how it's evolving is if you want to be a GM, you better get NIL to the nth degree, better understand the inner workings of it. Also, you better be able to recruit. Like we are seeing now, and James Blanchard at Texas Tech, who I know just decided to stay with Texas Tech, is probably the best in the industry. He's a guy who can evaluate, can recruit, can talk NIL, and get the kid to sign. So becoming a Swiss Army knife has never been more important at the GM position. And so landing a guy like him or the other number of great people at their position, Courtney Morgan, probably also one of the best at Alabama to do it in the industry. It's not necessarily a luxury so much as it is like a major need for wherever you are in college football.
So in terms of that position, you laid it out, evaluation, but day to day, what is the relationship between the GM and the head coach? Because we always thought that the head coach is the final word on everything, but where does the GM fit into the picture?
I think there's a really close relationship, needless to say, but something that's interesting, Paul, as we progress here throughout, what modern college football is in the world of NIL and the portal, what we're going to see is GMs tying themselves even more closely to athletic directors. And so there's a certain school out there at the Power 4 level that multiple high-level GMs have decided to say no to because they don't trust that head coach. They don't want to tie themselves to what they believe is an operation that's not headed in the right direction. And so that's, a one-off example, but that I think is going to become more and more the trend. So the conversation between the two on a day-to-day level, I have to imagine, is pretty intimate of, hey, we got this many guys at this position. We need to make sure we're really active in the spring portal at this spot and so on and so forth. But from a big picture standpoint, it's going to be GM linked to AD as opposed to GM linked to head coach here going forward.
That is fascinating. Before you go, I would be remiss if I didn't have you peek ahead to the upcoming season. You've alluded to a little bit of how certain schools have done, but give us a primer on what we should expect in 25.
Paul, one of the most fun storylines for the SEC in 2025 for me is just like the unknown of the quarterback position. Like you look at the betting favorites for who could win the conference, the top three odd favorites from Texas, Georgia, and Alabama, we kind of know who's going to be the quarterback at Georgia and Texas. Bama's got a lot of good options, but like we don't know without a shadow of a doubt what they're going to bring to the table. And so to me, that makes LSU so interesting. I said on my socials this week, like I know it's February. We try to steer clear from predictions in the month of February when it comes to next season. But like LSU is going to be a playoff team, Paul. I'm calling it right now. Garrett Nussmeier, the leading returning passer in the conference. I love what they did via the portal. I love Brian Kelly going into year 4. I love what they've done on defense. Now both coordinators have got their feet underneath. Like I love the direction of LSU, and the fact that you have a guy at quarterback that you trust to pull the trigger. I am really high on the Tigers here, Paul, going into next season. Yeah, I mean that has become something that I'm so intrigued by in terms of Brian Kelly. That opening game, brutal, but you can survive that. Let me get to some other schools that you're intrigued by. We know Texas, we know some of them, but give us some more schools to keep our eye on. Paul, I was really harsh on Oklahoma a year ago. Wasn't sure how the offensive line would look. Wasn't sure how the quarterback position would totally formulate. I'm changing my tune 180 on Oklahoma. I love the Sooners in 2025. I love John Mateer. I love the offensive coordinator and Ben Arbuckle. I love them bringing over John Mateer's quarterback coach and John Kuzieski. And also, Paul, I love Brent Venables calling the defense. Like, to me, if you were to do a draft of the top defensive minds in college football, would Brent Venables not be the first or second guy off the board, depending on how you feel about like a Kirby Smart? I think him calling the defense makes so much sense. And I just feel like there's such a higher floor across the board for what Oklahoma is. I trust John Mateer, as I mentioned. I trust Brent Venables to handle the defense. And I think we're going to see them be a team that, contends or at least makes some noise in that SEC title picture. Those are interesting. Let me turn it upside down. Who are you most concerned about? I really like Josh Heupel and what he's done at Tennessee. I am really concerned about what they're going to be next year. It would take Nico doing some things that we haven't seen him do just yet on a big picture scale. And that's not me telling you that Tennessee falls off the face of the earth and misses a bowl game, but relative to what they're supposed to do here next season with a returning starting quarterback and now going into another year under Josh Heupel, I'm a little bit having a hard time seeing how they're going to take that next step because I don't love what they have in that receiver room. You lose, a Dylan Sampson. You lose some key pieces on the defensive side with James Pierce going to the league. So as much as I like Tennessee, I have a hard time buying stock on them being a team that's like a lock to return to the college football playoff unless the light switch really goes on for Nico Iamaleava or some key weapons emerge on the perimeter. Finally, the school that we always talk about, and that's Alabama. Optimism, some concern. Where are you? Yeah, Paul, we talked about it on our show a little bit last week, but the hire of Ryan Grubb as the offensive coordinator for Kalen DeBoer, like the reuniting, if you will, of those two together from what they did at Washington, doesn't it feel like Alabama is just so much more settled in now? Like last year, it kind of felt like whenever you move into a new apartment and you just like the dishes are still in cardboard boxes and the mattress has no bed frame and your TV stand isn't up, so you're watching TV from a floor. Like it never felt totally moved in. And now you have a full off season where you get to use the portal as much as the portal gets used against you, which is probably a refreshing thing for the folks in Tuscaloosa. You have your coordinator who you've had all your success with when it comes to Kalen DeBoer and him working with Ryan Grubb. And you cross your fingers here, Tide fans, should have a quarterback that caters a little bit more to what Alabama wants to be throwing the ball downfield. Now, who's that guy going to be? No idea, whether it's Austin Mack or Ty Simpson or Keelan Russell. 3 good options, but likely someone with the skill set of what Kalen DeBoer wants to do, which is push the ball a little bit more vertical, which they obviously couldn't do very effectively or very consistently last year with Jalen Milroe. Amazing stuff. Always enjoy it. J.D. PicKell joining us from On3. We will talk to you soon, J.D. Be well. And we are heading right now toward the break. Your reaction to all of that in just a moment.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
And we are back here late on a Tuesday afternoon. Trey is up next.
Hey, Paul. I want to ask you a question. You tell me if I kind of perceived this wrong about the judge. When he called back in, he said that he raised a little brown baby or something of that sort. Paul, in my opinion, I was raised in the 60s, 70s, 80s in Alabama, and racism here, we know the history of racism, and especially in southern Alabama. In my opinion, that is kind of like 60s, 70s, 80s talk.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he could have used different word like African-American baby
Trey, how many
or
times,
baby of a different race.
How many times have you... I think the judge is just a product of his environment and his era. And by the way, I'm well aware of that era. I grew up in it, as you did. But how many times did he tell me he wasn't a racist?
Exactly. I mean, when you have to say you aren't, then that about says it all. But I just, and I had to ask because I wanted to make sure, because I grew up in times where I saw some pretty ugly things.
Oh, sure. We all did. I mean, people our age, I should say.
Yes, sir. Now I got the guy that called in, John from Mississippi, about thinking this was a football show or whatever. I can't remember what he said, but he needs to understand, Paul, the SEC is also a baseball, softball, and basketball conference, and it's that time of year. Your show always moves on from football to those other sports most of the time until it gets around spring football. And what the basketball men's and women are accomplishing right now in the SEC is really unthinkable. I mean, if you look tonight, you got 5 games on that involve 5 ranked teams, and 3 of them were the top 3 teams in the country. So I just didn't get that take from him, and I wondered what you thought. And I'm looking forward to watching some great basketball tonight, Paul. You take care.
Trey, he was a complete and total poser. We all know that. I-Man is up next.
Hey there, Paul. How's it going?
I-Man.
You know, when people call in and say that this is a sports show, now we are the SEC and we're the southeastern part of the country, but we're also people. I don't know about the rest of you vagabonds out there, but we're people down here. We actually do other things, too. We just happen to fit football, baseball, basketball, horseback riding, deer hunting, catfish fishing, noodling. We happen to fit all that stuff in with our daily chores and our families. Now, if that's too much for y'all to comprehend, maybe you ought to go to the ACC network or the Big Ten network or the Big 12 or the PAC. Maybe you just ease on down to nothing. But we're people, and we're going to be people. And you know what? You can't beat us. Bish, you can't beat us. I'm going to borrow a Dave phrase. Bish. I mean, you can't beat us. You know why? Because you ain't us. Paul, I just got off the phone. Well, not actually the phone, texting with Legend. And he wanted me to tell everybody hello. He's had a pretty tough time. He been battling the flu, and in the process of all that, both of his eardrums busted.
Yeah.
And he's taking a bunch of antibiotics, and he's not sure if the antibiotics are going to fix it or not. If not, then they'll have to go in there and operate on them rascals. I don't know what they do with eardrums. What do they do? They stretch that stuff back in
I don't know. Yeah,
I
I heard from him the other day, and I just said, be careful before you have surgery. Make sure you get
I mean, who do you
counseling.
go to have that kind of thing? You don't go to the trampoline place. I mean,
your ears are very sensitive.
I've never. Yeah, I can imagine so. But
listen, I know, man. I have the biggest ears in America. I promise you. I have to be careful.
Paul, I never noticed. I never noticed your ears.
I'm thinking about getting. You go. There's this like breast reduction. Can you get it? You tell me, man. You're unfortunately in the doctor's office all the time. Would you ask one of those doctors if I can get ear reduction?
Well, I just turned around and looked at the screen. Hell, if you put a diamond ear in like Marcus Spears, that'd be one of what's her name, Liz Taylor's jewels.
I wonder if I should start wearing. You're right. Maybe I should get my ears pierced.
I tell you, Paul, you can't wear that out of the house. I mean, I tell you, it's a good thing you run for a living. I mean, you run. I mean, if you get diamonds in your ears like that, you're gonna gain about 15 pounds.
Okay. I don't need to do that.
Listen, Paul, I was just going. No, I was just going to call and give you an update on Legend and tell everybody hello and that we are people. and you can't be us. Bishop. Have a good day.
Thank you very much, I-Man. John B. is up next.
Hey, Paul. Thanks for taking my call. And, I don't think you're going to have to worry about them ears very much because I wrote it down, 3:26 p.m. Central Time. You better have your Valentine's bought up. You better have that house just like she wants it and everything else because Mrs. Dr. Finebaum, you said doctors were some of the hardest people to talk to, and they're always right. Does she listen to this show?
I think she occasionally hears it on the way home, but I think she's doing something else today.
I figured.
Well, by the way, when we first married, she thought she was like doing me a favor, and she said, "Oh, by the way, the doctors here at the hospital want you to speak to them." And Johnny, I have never had a more miserable experience in my life than trying to be funny in front of a bunch of doctors.
Wait a minute, Squirrel.
They don't think anything. They only listen to themselves. You put me in a Goodyear plant. You put me in a pipe company. I mean, people that work for a living. But you put me in front of a bunch of highfalutin doctors.
Misery.
It was miserable.
Misery.
Nothing I said was funny. They acted like they knew it all. And
I've got some of this governor talk though. Let's move on.
Okay.
The governor thing. Handsome Joe and myself up here in Franklin County. I guarantee you we can take the northwest part of this.
North Alabama is always a little more unpredictable than Central and South Alabama. So
you got relatives in Marion, and I used to be on the radio down there.
Okay.
We stole that place down there. So, I can see it right now, the cabinet, Johnny B's lawn care, the official lawn care of the state, Brandon B, the pressure washer. I think I-Man can be our music and heating and air guy.
Johnny B, I will only put Finebaum callers in the cabinet.
All right. Chris can be the custodian.
Oh, yeah.
That reminds me about Chris, though. Chris said on here the other day
we want the most corrupt cabinet in Alabama history. And by the way, that's a challenge I'm not even sure we can succeed with.
We'll have to get some of the old guys back.
Thank you for listening to the Best of the Paul Finebaum Show podcast. Watch the Paul Finebaum Show weekdays from 3 to 7 Eastern on the SEC Network. Plus, you can listen and watch on the ESPN app.